we are almost at the end. So I'm really excited about that.
This is a tough read right now. I'm not even gonna lie.
I'm really, really glad that my attorney is an expert in defamation.
Oh no. If you threw this in a law school class, you'd have half the class confused.
This could be the case where the judge is like, I don't even know what the f this is. Can someone please tell me in the comments why we are spelling Jeffree Star's name with 2 R's? I don't understand why we're misspelling things.
I feel like what's being reported on YouTube right now has just been so, it's missing things.
Like, how is any of what's in this introduction relevant? And I still can't figure that out.
Like, I don't know why they're talking about all this stuff because they don't have to. The fact that you're doing this normally at least suggests you don't have other options.
How are we missing the point at this point?
Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel.
Behold beach.
After a really long wait, finally Katie Joy has filed a response to Tati Westbrook's defamation lawsuit. And what she gave us was a motion to dismiss, which ended up being a huge, nonsensical, misspelled, and deflecting disaster. But before we start, do not forget to go down below and subscribe to the channel and ring that bell button so you can get notified every time I post. Also, as a quick disclaimer, I just want to remind you guys that everything we discuss here in the channel is my opinion, and my opinion only, not to be taken as a fact. Always do additional research from the information that you get here in the channel. Do not send any hate to the people that I'm going to be talking about in this video.
Am I right, fellow adult?
However, I do encourage all of you to go in the comment section and let me know what do you think about the situation. Miss Without a Law Degree was completely on top of the world, posting on Twitter how she was going to knock her socks off with her response to the lawsuit. And she gave us a motion to dismiss. The day before this motion dropped, she made a live on her channel where she bragged a whole lot about this response.
I have been working really hard for the last month. I have had to work a lot of hours doing a lot of research, preparing for what's coming tomorrow.
Holy shit, you don't say.
We are almost at the end. So I'm really excited about that. I'm thinking tomorrow will be the day for all of the filings. I am looking forward to it. I just saw the first draft of everything.
It almost feels like she just finished writing the first draft of everything.
The attorneys that are on YouTube that are giving you the information about this and helping you form your opinions on this, they really haven't, from what I've seen, they don't have any idea what's going to be coming tomorrow. If you're watching other YouTubers to get sort of an understanding about this case, please remember that the only people that really know what's happening are my attorney and then the attorneys involved with the other side, not any YouTube attorneys.
In my opinion, that one was directed to Emily D. Baker, and if you haven't seen this live, you understand in a little bit.
I think people will realize quickly once we file just why I haven't been super stressed out.
So I came to the realization that you're going to lose, so maybe you got in terms with it?
Shade!
I'm really, really glad that my attorney is an expert in defamation, and I'm also really glad that he not only is an expert in defamation, but he also is an expert in the laws pertaining to federal and state courts. I feel like what's being reported on YouTube right now has just been so, it's missing things.
Then they don't argue the defamation, so none of this is relevant.
I guess we have something in common with her motion to dismiss.
My goal in all of this is that when our side comes out, we're going to issue a formal statement. I have probably spent hundreds of hours on this.
It does not look like it.
Tomorrow's filing, it will give you guys a balance and an understanding of what the actual laws are, what the actual requirements are.
This is 26 pages long. It's been brought to my attention by those who practice in federal court more than my ass does, that this judge has a standing order and that this goes against the page length. It's not in legal writing format.
As a legal principle, it seems odd as a strategy.
I don't understand why we're misspelling things.
How is PewDiePie relevant to any of this?
And what the actual details behind all of this are, because we have a lot of information. We're presenting a lot of evidence.
Keep all of that in mind, you guys, because I think she's a little delusional, and I'm going to tell you why.
But I'm feeling good. I feel like one attorney that might be able to provide you guys with sort of an unbiased perspective might be Nate Brody.
Welcome to the show. My name is Nate the Lawyer.
He sees where the issues are.
So forget about the fact that she told us to not believe what YouTube attorneys have to say. It almost makes me wonder why this attorney is so unbiased.
I would say, like, just wait for Nate. I've been friends with him for a very long time.
All right, so he's unbiased because they've been friends for a very long time. I can't wait to see what Nate has to say about this.
The one thing I've learned about the attorneys that are covering the cases on YouTube is that defamation law is very specific.
And I agree with her on that one. Whenever you file a motion to dismiss a lawsuit on defamation, make sure to talk about the defamation because it's very specific.
I mean, from a perspective of reading a legal document, they can certainly dissect it and explain it to you, but
Because the judge isn't going to know anything. They're not going to do research. They're just going to look at the filings and base it on what they see.
Nate does have a background in defamation law. He's actually done a number of defamation cases. So if you want to see someone cover it from a more civil perspective.
I'm just going to be honest. I was underwhelmed.
At the end of the day, I'm feeling really good.
It just made me kind of like,
Since we're gonna talk about legal papers, well, hello, hi. I am not a lawyer. I am this. This is what I do. I'm not a lawyer at all. I don't understand law. Therefore, this is what I'm gonna do in this video. I watched both YouTube lawyers that Katie loves and loves to despise.
I had no idea.
Oh, and uncivil law. Obviously, along with my opinions. But remember, my opinions are just my opinions. Since there's a lot of YouTubers who already went through the entire motion, in this video, I will only be touching on the most important highlights of the motion. I want to show you guys a clip explaining what the idea of this motion should have looked like in order to be effective and helpful to Katie.
Are statements that a person can reasonably rely upon as being true in the purposes of defamation. So if it's in fact false, if this person's lying or mischaracterizing, which is not exactly outside the realm of possibility, then the idea is that I can reasonably rely on it in a non-negligent way. Under standard defamation, you need at least negligence. You need at least negligence to get to standard defamation. Under public figure status, you need this actual malice, which is actual malice to the truth. So even assuming the non-public figure status, even assuming standard defamation, you have to prove at least negligence. You had a duty and you didn't comply with your duty. So the idea here is even under the negligence standard, the lower standard that applies to just garden variety negligence, you can't be negligent if you're relying on a sworn affidavit.
defamation. Whenever you see a defamation motion to dismiss, you usually see it for failure to state a claim. Even if even if everything you're saying is true, you can't recover. Like, either some of those statements may have been opinions, because she's a public figure and she can't prove actual malice. You would go and plead that and say, well, these are opinions. And the judge would literally, you go through all the statements and say, these statements are opinions. And the judge would throw out those statements because they're opinions. You don't see that here.
That should have been the plan from the beginning, but let's see what actually happened. Katie and her lawyer try to make Tati or the Westbrooks look like they are drama people. However, one of the exhibits that they have on their motion debunks that right away.
At one point, her brand was that she was the least problematic person in the beauty space.
And then she goes on to talk about Jeffree Star, Shane Dawson, something about rivals, and you guys already know how I feel about mentioning other YouTubers as rivals. That's the stupidest thing ever. She also touches on Carmageddon, PewDiePie, because PewDiePie reacted to it.
Pewdie who we talking about? Pewdie what? This is hilarious.
They also touch on the lawsuit going on between the Westbrooks and Halo and Clark Swanson, her being a small channel.
I just can't imagine an attorney being like, yes, the fact that you are a small YouTube channel has legal weight and relevance in any way.
And why she's getting sued when there are other people who also talk about Tati.
But she defamed Jolly, so I can't defame her. That doesn't work usually in court.
Making this video and editing for it, I found a very interesting clip of Katie Joy saying that Jeffree Star should not be held accountable.
And Jeffree just can't be held accountable for her making a decision to upload a video, and Shane can't be held accountable again.
Let me troll here for a second. Now she changed her mind. Now she thinks that they should have been held accountable. And then finally, they list the reasons why they're making this motion and why it should be dismissed. And as I said, since I'm not a lawyer, I am going to be reacting to the lawyers in the room. So let's see what the lawyers in the room have to say about this introduction. Also keep in mind the fact that Nate, the lawyer, is Katie's friend, and she herself said that he would be the most unbiased about the situation.
My side notes here, I'm still saying a lot of background, not really, to me, it just doesn't seem like it's really going to the cause of action.
What's the defendant's name and why isn't it used consistently?
It seems very tangential and irrelevant. It seems like, let me just throw everyone under the bus instead of talking about the coercion.
I've never seen an attorney use the word silliness in a filing. What the introduction doesn't talk about is the shit that's in the defamation complaint that alleges that in 40 videos there were statements made by KJ. It doesn't talk about any of that.
This is like what you do when you can't do anything else.
So it's not relevant unless they're arguing the defamation, but then they don't argue the defamation. So none of this is relevant.
I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm stumped. I don't get it. I don't get why you don't attack the defamation.
But it's like, at the end of the day, why are we talking about this and not talking about the defamation?
I don't know.
8 pages of completely unnecessary tea. I didn't want tea. I don't need tea. I did not consent to the tea. I've seen the videos about tea and consent. I have been force-fed some tea. Why?
If you say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And if they say, no thank you, then don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay?
I'm like, oh, why are you doing this? This is so off-putting. This is so completely unnecessary. What are you doing?
I'm agreeing with you. And I'm Katie's friend.
It feels like something that she would say more than something her lawyers would say.
I can only hope that their lawyers are smarter than either one of us, because it doesn't make sense to me.
So they're really putting a lot of their eggs and just really went into the jurisdictional basket. You know what I mean?
The biggest argument on this motion to dismiss is that the Washington state has no jurisdiction over this lawsuit because Katie Joy does not live there. She has never been to that specific state, and generally because she has no ties financially or otherwise to the state. However, we're gonna see that that's not completely true, in my opinion.
Jurisdiction is essentially authority. Does the court have authority to hold the defendant into court? And personal jurisdiction is the jurisdiction over the actual person. Does the Washington court have jurisdiction over the defendant, Katie Joy, because she lives in Minnesota?
Which means the court can't bring the Minnesota defendants into court. There's no jurisdiction over KJ and her business.
If the court is going to get personal jurisdiction over Katie, over a non-resident, they have to have minimum context with
Tati and James can sue where they want. They just have to show that enough of the shit they're alleging happened where they choose to sue to bring you there too.
Please feel free to correct me at any point in the comment section. However, as per my understanding on this very first point of personal and general jurisdiction, Without a Law degree alleges that she has never been to Washington. She has never had any meaningful contact with the state in any way to justify the Westbrooks should be suing her in the state of Washington. However, I beg to differ because some of her research was done through the state of Washington.
I was doing research about this before we went online because I wanted to know who she is. She's not Tati. She's not Tatiana. She's Craven from Washington. All of this information came from court records from Hawaii, California, South Carolina, North Carolina, Washington State, and Georgia. James's reputation is a 0.53 out of 5. He has a bad reputation. And I think you should think about that when you consider doing business with James and Tati Westbrook. This expose on Tati has been 3 weeks of research.
Based on all of this, in my opinion, the fact that she went through court records in Washington state to help her form an opinion about James and Tati's trustworthiness and their character is, in my opinion, more than enough to prove that she has meaningful contact with the state, and that added to her defamatory statements. The next quote-unquote strong argument is that the Court of Washington State has no jurisdiction with the plaintiff Halo.
But the issue here is that the company is not in Washington. The company is instead a Nevada company,
Sure.
and its principal place of business is in Nevada.
Sure.
So, in other words, it's saying, well, why are you suing us in Washington when you're not even in Washington?
The complaint contains no allegations even suggesting this court may exercise personal jurisdiction with respect to plaintiff Halo's claims.
I agree they're located in Nevada. Their purposeful place of business is Nevada. That's general jurisdiction in Nevada, no problem. There's
Yes.
no general jurisdiction in Washington, agreed. But I'm
Yes.
going to guess, just because they're a business doing sales, they've probably done enough sales in Washington to get to where they need to be. So the business has some liability potentially in Washington, even if the people don't.
Halo is a company that does business everywhere. And if their business was damaged because sales went down, then it would have been damaged where they do business. And they probably sell products everywhere. And if their managing members are in Washington, then
Yes. I agree with that.
Obviously, to me, this is a very weak argument because all Michael Saltz needs to do is to show the judge that business has been hurt in Washington state. And then he will throw away this whole entire Halo's jurisdiction claim. And he actually started doing that. The day that the motion was filed, Michael Saltz posted this on Twitter. If anyone from Washington state would like to sign a truthful declaration that they decided not to buy or support Halo Beauty products due to the statements made by Mrs. Paulson about said product or the Westbrooks, please contact us to make the arrangements. Thank you. And people were very quick to respond to this tweet. Hey, I'm in Washington state. I was interested in buying the Halo vitamins for myself and my teenagers. I changed my mind after watching Without a Crystal Ball's video. That video scared me and I decided not to buy. I live in Washington state.
She's been accused of selling snake oil, and honestly, after everything that I've done, I can say without a doubt, her product is snake oil, her product is overpriced, and her product is being used to, like, she's manipulating her followers into buying these products and promising results that have zero testing to show that they do anything. Do not get involved with snakes. And don't buy their snake oil.
All of a sudden, all the people from all over started also trying to help. I realize you are asking for Washington state citizens, but I would be happy to if you are able to add other states in on this declaration. I have lupus and I struggled with hair and skin. I was very interested in the vitamins until I saw what Katie said about them being detrimental. Please feel free to email us your story and contact information, and we will see if it can be added to another aspect of the case. If you need a truthful declaration from someone in Canada, I'm available by DM. We will need truthful declarations from people from everywhere to show worldwide damage. Our immediate need for information currently is for Washington, but please feel free to send us your story and information via email if you would like to tell it. And finally, he posted one tweet to clarify to everyone what's going on. It's not limited to Washington. We are simply looking for people who can confirm whether KJ caused damage to Halo in Washington through her conduct directed at residents of the state of Washington. The evidence is needed to respond to claims she has made in her declaration. The next desperate attempt from Without a Law Degree to get this motion dismissed in the state of Washington is claiming that she did not know that the plaintiffs lived in Washington.
The argument is that they lived in Washington, so that's why they can sue out of Washington, right? That's why all the places of action. But here, so she's attacking it. She's saying, well, they weren't in Washington. They weren't living in Washington. So if they weren't living in Washington, you can't file your lawsuit in Washington.
Tati and James moved to the state of Washington in 2018 and became permanent residents therein in 2019, a fact known by defendants, as Paulson has made mention of Tati's move to Washington in certain of her videos. The story focused on plaintiffs' activities within the forum. Yes, there were stories that focused on the fact that they were moving.
Before we keep going, I want to give a special thanks to the YouTuber Charlotte. She provided me with a lot of the paperwork that I'm showing to you guys in this video. I'm gonna link her channel down below. Make sure to check her out. She's great. To be honest, on this part, I think that I'm a little confused because I see two possibilities here. The first one is the possibility that Katie is trying to say that she wasn't aware that the Westbrooks had moved to Seattle, but she made an entire video about it just 2 months ago, titled Tati Westbrook lists her Los Angeles compound she bought. Is she leaving YouTube for good?
Tati Westbrook is leaving Los Angeles. She actually moved with her husband James to Seattle a couple months ago, actually a while ago. She said that she no longer felt safe, and now she's leaving Los Angeles. She's dipping out of LA.
The second explanation I could see on that argument, and I don't know which one it is that they were trying to transpire here, is that Tati possibly was not clear to the fact that she permanently moved to Seattle. And then they posted some silly exhibits with like Instagram photos and Instagram comments. Come on, Tati Westbrook is a 9 million subscriber YouTuber. She's not going to be right away telling everybody what her whereabouts are. I don't understand what her point was there, and I just don't think that it's valid. In addition to that, Tati had posted a video titled I'm Safe, I'm in Seattle. And by watching that video, I had the impression that she was actually in the process of permanently staying in Seattle.
Guys, welcome to today's video. I am here in Seattle, obviously not in my studio, not in LA. I had an evening where it was 3 in the morning and I went out into my living room. I was actually here in Seattle. And even when I first got here to Seattle and I was tweeting about staying in, I love my community. I love Washington. I love Los Angeles. I have a large home in LA. That's no, there's no hiding that.
A huge tell for me here is that she doesn't say my home in LA. She just says that she has a home in LA. And by the way, here is Puka in Seattle. However, ultimately, keep in mind that
The fact that like the plaintiff lives in Washington or not is totally irrelevant. Who cares?
Breaking news.
Plaintiff can choose where to sue.
this argument is kind of like useless and a waste of a page. Simply, they're claiming that if there were other defendants during this lawsuit who were in the same state of any of the parties, there would be a lack of diversity jurisdiction. However, Katie has done a sworn statement saying that she hasn't worked with anybody else, which means that this was a waste of an argument. But let the lawyers in the room explain better.
Now, for those of you who don't know what diversity jurisdiction is, if you're suing someone in federal court, you have to sue them. For jurisdiction, you have to sue them either for a federal question, like it's about federal law, or you have to sue them based on diversity of citizenship. One citizen from one state and a citizen from another state. So when you have does, if you have like 100 John Does that I don't know who they are, but I'm suing, and you don't, and let's say one of those John Does is from the same state as the plaintiff, then you kill your diversity jurisdiction, because for diversity jurisdiction, the plaintiff and defendants have to be from different states.
Diversity jurisdiction means all the parties are from different places. So in this case, Tati and James live in Washington. The business is in Nevada. KJ and the business and her business are in Minnesota. But if any of the Does are also in Washington, then it's not diverse. But in KJ's declaration, she says that she didn't work with anybody in Washington. So the argument's kind of out the door anyway, because in the complaint, they allege that the Does are people that are unknown because they were working with KJ. So the complaint tries to get to the fact that there's this underlying belief that somebody was working with her, and then in her signed under penalty of perjury affidavit, she says, no, I didn't work with anyone in the state of Washington. So that argument is kind of dead in the water, in my opinion.
So yeah, we wasted our time on this part. Sorry, this is time you're never gonna get back, but it really shows the desperation here, doesn't it? In this part of the motion, she claims that if she's being sued, Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson should also be sued. And because allegedly they aren't, and that's her claims, then her lawsuit should be dropped because they are not suing enough people, or the people they're supposed to be sued, in her opinion. Because her argument in her mind is
like, the stuff I said is less than the stuff that other people said, so my damages are low.
and it makes no sense to me because based on that video, and I'm going to show you the clip again, she says that Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson should not be held accountable for what Tati Westbrook did, her own actions. So why now they should be held accountable if they in no way influenced Katie Joy's actions?
Jeffree just can't be held accountable for her making a decision to upload a video, and Shane can't be held accountable again.
As they shouldn't be held accountable for Katie talking smack about Tati, because that's essentially what this lawsuit is about.
Star and Dawson weren't part of why KJ made statements.
This is ultimately just an issue between Tati and Katie. Did KT defame and do other stuff with respect to Tati? So what other people might have done to Tati or what other people might have done to Katie is a little bit neither here nor there.
The shit you said is the shit you said. If other people also said shit, it doesn't mean that what you said doesn't carry the weight of damages.
In the request of judicial notice, Katie's motion points to the fact that there is a lawsuit from Clark Swanson against the Westbrooks, taking in consideration that the claims from that complaint support everything that she has said about the Westbrooks, making it true. However, everything that she said about the Westbrooks was before the complaint from Clark Swanson. I don't know what her point is here. Let's see what the lawyers in the room have to say about that.
So if they're trying to rely on statements in the Swanson suit as true, they're allegations. There's no sworn affidavit here. Yes, Swanson signed that lawsuit under penalty of perjury, but it's not sworn to this court. So it's a very interesting tack. The fact of the lawsuit can be taken notice of, but not the contents of it.
And then the second part calls the attention of the court for some videos that have been posted by PewDiePie, Trisha Paytas, D'Angelo Wallace, giving their opinions about Tati during the time of By Sister.
Please take judicial notice the fact of these videos and their contents. Nothing about these scandals formed the basis of the lawsuit. The basis of the defamation suit is the 40 videos that are listed in the defamation suit. And none of these YouTube videos that are listed in the appendix can be taken as evidence because they're not sworn statements. But what the fuck PewDiePie thinks about By Sister is completely irrelevant to whether there's jurisdiction in this case, and I don't even know why it's brought up. You can't take judicial notice of the content of a PewDiePie YouTube video or Trisha Paytas saying that she thinks Tati Westbrook is stupid. If you want evidence that Trisha Paytas thinks that Tati Westbrook is stupid, ask Trisha to sign an affidavit.
If you're not asking for the defamation to be thrown out, then what does it matter that BuzzFeed and NPR and PBS are covering the case? Because you're not challenging the defamation piece of it. Right?
So why talk about all the other times someone defamed Tati or all the other times someone defamed Katie, for that matter?
And it goes on to say, please take judicial notice the fact of these videos and their contents. Nothing about these scandals formed the basis of the lawsuit. The basis of the defamation suit is the 40 videos that are listed in the defamation suit. And none of these YouTube videos that are listed in the appendix can be taken as evidence because they're not sworn statements.
So here we're going back to, again, it seems like we're going back to the T, right? Because we just went through the T and now we're going back to it.
The next document we have is a sworn affidavit from Katie Joy. Catherine Paulson declares as follows: I am over the age of 18 and am named as a defendant in this action. I make this declaration based on personal knowledge. I believe I was and have been credited by other YouTuber commentators as being the first to publicly report on Clark Swanson's October 20th, 2020 lawsuit filed against plaintiff in this case on October 28th, 2020.
The filing of which was first reported by defendants Catherine Paulson and her corporation Without a Crystal Ball. This comes up a lot that she was the first that reported it. Defendants were the first to report on the Swanson lawsuit. I think that's the third time it's brought up. It might be the fourth time. I believe I was and have been credited by other YouTube commentators as being the first to publicly report on Clark Swanson's October 2020 lawsuit filed against the plaintiffs in this case. Okay!
I think now is a good time for I to touch on the fact that I think that she's a little bit delusional.
In their filing to the court that they found out about the lawsuit through my video and my blog. I remember when I first started my channel, I didn't think anyone even would watch. And I remember uploading a video about, I think, Tati Westbrook. And I couldn't believe that Tati Westbrook would even watch my video and let alone send me a letter. You know what I'm saying?
Even though she's being sarcastic about the letter because she means the cease and desist, the four of them, I feel like it's so odd how she brags about everything, being the first to report things, that big YouTubers watch her, and bragging that she's getting cease and desist letters. It's just extremely weird, and I feel like she's a little delusional because she feels important. It's just super odd behavior. Let me know what you guys think down below could have been going through her head. Let's try to guess what is really going on here. I am the sole owner and sole employee of Without a Crystal Ball LLC. I am a citizen and resident of Minnesota. My company, Without a Crystal Ball LLC, is incorporated and it has its principal place of business in Minnesota. Other than a family vacation in or about 1990, I have never set foot in Washington State. To my knowledge, neither I nor Without a Crystal Ball has any sponsors or subscribers in Washington. And this is going to be the first I'm going to call bullshit, because you can clearly see how I can go into my analytics and find out my audience, go down into by countries and find my country or the country that I post. Selecting the US, you will tell me each and every single state that watches my videos. And I'm pretty sure that KJ is a quote-unquote investigative journalist, and this is a pretty simple step that anybody can do it. I did it, so I'm pretty sure she's aware of the existence of this tool on YouTube. To my knowledge, neither I nor Without a Crystal Ball derives any income from the state of Washington. The first thing I want to point out is that Katie sells merch, and I highly doubt that she has never sold anything to the state of Washington, especially if whenever somebody or her checks the back analytics on her channel, just like I showed it to you guys, if the state of Washington shows right there, then even if she never sold one single item from her merch to Washington, she still is getting AdSense money from Washington, effectively making that statement again a lie under penalty of perjury. I did not conduct any research in Washington state or rely on any Washington resident as a source in relation to the publications on which this lawsuit is based.
All of this information came from court records from Hawaii, California, South Carolina, North Carolina, Washington State.
I accessed all of the material. Oh my God. I accessed all of the materials for these stories, which were in public records in different states, not Washington, from Minnesota, using the internet.
I can't believe you all even believing this.
I did not in any way target these publications at Washington State. My publications are aimed at a general, national, and international audience on the internet. This is just too funny. Let's talk about the internet. She knows, we all know, that the internet doesn't skip Washington, right? Right? We know that, right? So what the fuck is she talking about? Oh my God, I feel that this is a challenge to the intelligence of every human. Yeah, it's personally weird to say, yeah, I didn't intend to have Washington watch my videos. I'm in the internet. Like, what the fuck? I'm not saying she's stupid or anything, but I just can't. It's just too much. My understanding was that Tati and James Westbrook resided in Los Angeles, California, at least until Mrs. Westbrook publicly announced that she had moved to Seattle in December 2019. Even after that, however, Mrs. Westbrook posted videos on YouTube that indicated she had not moved to Seattle even by March 2020. Pursuant to the laws of perjury of the United States of America, that the foregoing paragraph 1 through 4 is true and correct. I honestly am very concerned about her. At least 3 of these claims she has on this sworn letter could be allegedly verified to be bullshit.
What's that smell? Is that some bullshit?
How is this woman signing a document like this that can be so easily verified that she is potentially lying? Shortly after the motion have been filed, there was an answer from the judge. A minute order is an abbreviated decision that is generally issued more quickly than a full decision because the administrative law judge is not required to make detailed findings of fact and conclusions of law.
The minute order is the judge saying, this is what happened.
On the 8th motion to preserve evidence, the court will allow parties to file the response and reply briefs according to deadline in the WAWD local rules. On the 17th motion to dismiss, the court will allow page limitations to follow the local rule on this motion only. Deadlines, however, should be according to judge standing order. In addition, counsel should meet and confer according to the standing order, and the moving party shall forthwith file a certification of conferral, also per the standing order authorized by judge. The judges on this case have standing orders, which means that their preference, how do they rule their court, is different than the local guideline. However, because KJ missed the deadline to submit her response for the motion to preserve evidence, graciously these judges allow them to follow the local guidance, and the local guidance gives a little extra time in contrast to the judge's standing order.
This is not the leg we want to stand on.
There's also a mention about the lack of meeting and conferring, because it seems like that on the standing orders, the judge wants the parties, which is both attorneys of both sides, to meet and try to resolve things before filing their motions, and it looks like that didn't happen. Pursuant to the standing order for civil cases setting trial date, related dates, and court procedures standing order docket 20, the court hereby strikes the noting dates for plaintiff's motion for order to preserve evidence docket 8 and defendant's motion to dismiss docket number 17. Instead, pursuant to section 2.A.3 of the standing order, the oppositions to the motions are due 21 days after the date on which the motion was filed, and the file is due 14 days after the opposition is filed. This minute order does not strike the motion. Further, it strikes the noting date. The court will consider the motion upon the completion of briefing in accordance with the foregoing schedule, authorized by judge. This minute order was issued before the one that I just read to you guys. In this initial minute order, it was basically the judge's way to say,
Mom has rules and you need to follow them.
She basically struck all of the dates that they had in the calendar. One, because the motion to dismiss was not only filed in the wrong day, but it was also late. Also, because of the fact that the motion to preserve evidence hasn't even been responded to, and they also missed the date for that, and they blew up the page limit. So this is a reminder to them that they need to read and follow the standing orders that this judge has provided them.
I haven't been teabagged this hard in my life before.
It's really surprising that her lawyer is dropping the ball this way, but what is not surprising is that she could potentially get deplatformed sooner than later, because YouTube is watching this, and Emily D. Baker mentioned something that I wasn't aware of, and that's a little more worrisome for Katie.
So when I say that Tulsi will go after his cases, he will go after his cases. This is the person that KJ has chosen to fuck with. There are individuals suing Google and a whole bunch of other people. What I'm going to say about this is Google and YouTube are being sued after they were fined $173 million by the FTC. So a lot of people are being sued, but Google and YouTube have who appear to be their heads of litigation assigned to this case. DreamWorks, Hasbro, Cartoon Network, RFR Entertainment, RTR Entertainment, Remka Inc., Google. Who is this attorney? Tulsi. We know that Tulsi is representing Remka, along with all of these other attorneys. This docket of attorneys reads like a who's who of the heads of litigation for Google and YouTube. Saltzy is in the defense group, which means all of these attorneys are going to be working together. That means that Saltzy is in an active case with the head attorneys from Google and YouTube. So if Saltzy is on a case in a massive class action after a $170 million fine by the government, I imagine that the attorneys for Google and YouTube are their heads of their litigation department. So if Saltzy is in a defense group with them on a case where they're all working together, I imagine that means that there is a text thread. I imagine that that means there are email threads and that they probably talk, 3 or 4 times a week. If you have the cell phone numbers of all of the heads of litigation for YouTube and Google, why would you poke that bear? Why would you poke that bear? So when Keemstar says things like, oh, you don't think YouTube's paying attention to this? Let me tell you why YouTube's paying attention to this. Because the lawyer that you're taking potshots at on fucking Twitter is also in a defense group with all the heads of litigation for Google and YouTube. Know who you're fucking with before you start fucking with them. And if you're going to try to wrap in your motion, Shane Dawson still makes money for the program. Jeffree Star still makes money for the program. PewDiePie makes money for the program. Tati Westbrook makes money for the program. So if you don't think YouTube's going to be like, I'm sorry, what's a crystal ball? And why are they trying to take shots at every single YouTuber, but these YouTubers with a large platform? Do you not think at some point YouTube is going to say, we're not doing this? Because now you have somebody actively filing a motion to dismiss, trying to rope in all of the other YouTubers. And the attorney that you're trying to take shots at on Twitter knows all those attorneys. Who's the person that's going to get thrown under the bus in all of this? By the platform. If anyone's going to get deplatformed in all of this, who is it going to be?
Between Katie's lawyer failure to file the motions in time and Katie's behavior online, this lawsuit may cost her more than just whatever amount seemed fit by a jury. This whole thing could cost her her entire platform and she could lose her channel for good. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Do you think she has any chance of winning this lawsuit now? Do you think she could really lose her channel? If you like this video, please don't forget to drop a like. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel now and ring the bell button so you can get notified every time I post. Also follow me on my socials. They will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next upload.